Aloha and welcome. In this video, we're going to be talking about SSH, FTPS, and SFTP. So let's go ahead and dive into our textbooks. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Secure Shell, SSH. So SSH was created as a replacement for something called Telnet. Telnet allowed us to connect to computers remotely. For example, I used to use Telnet to connect from one of my computers to a Linux or a Unix system back a long time ago. The problem with that is Telnet uses clear text. So everything, the credentials are sent in clear text. So of course that's not good. If you've got somebody snooping it, they can see your username and password in the transmission. So you don't want to do that. So there's a better way of doing this. They created SSH. So SSH is Secure Shell. That allows you to use port 22 to connect securely. And what's going to happen there is SSH is going to provide your data confidentiality by using encryption. Then you're going to get data integrity by using message authentication codes, MAC codes that we talked about before. So the cool thing about SSH is it supports something called protocol tunneling. So protocols, you'll remember kind of rules for sending things back and forth. So there's different types of protocols out there. But the nice thing about protocol tunneling is it allows you to put one protocol packet inside the packets of another protocol. So this SSH protocol, it's going to allow us to put other things within it, like FTP, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So, um, this protocol tunneling, it's the encapsulation of a protocol's packets within the packets of another protocol. SSH is used in SSH File Transfer Protocol. So SFTP is that one. So and also is used for Secure Copy Protocol, SCP. So you're going to probably see these on the certification exam. But when they're talking about SFTP, just know that that's going to be FTP over SSH. And then you've got Secure Copy Protocol, SCP, which also uses SCP also uses SSH for the connections. So SSH, it can also be used for public key authentication to provision access without requiring a user password for each login. And the SSH authentication protocol facilitates automated passwordless logins and single sign-on SSO. So in this kind of an authentication scheme, your user's public key is going to be stored on the SSH server, and the user's private key, of course, is going to be held by the user. So I'll show you an example. The participation activity here shows the process that you go by to set up a connection. So in the beginning, you're going to initiate your connection. The client is going to send a message to the server saying, "Hey, I want to, set up a connection." They'll send back a random message. Doesn't matter what it is. And then at the client end, you're going to take that and you're going to encrypt it with your private key. And then you're going to take that result of it and you're going to send it back to the server. At the server end, they're going to authenticate you, using the public key that they have that matches up with your private key. And if it decrypts to the random message that they originally sent you, they know it's you. And that's at this point, it will negotiate a session key using an algorithm such as Diffie-Hellman that we talked about in our previous video, or one of our previous videos. And then it begins the encrypted communications after that over port 22, TCP 22. And do keep that in mind, TCP port 22 for SSH. That's very important. We've talked about other things and the ports that they use. You'll need to know these, so you might as well make a list of these common ports, port numbers and everything, and know what they're used for. So make a chart of whether it's UDP or TCP, then the number, and then the application that uses that. That'll come in very handy for the certification exam. Next, we're going to talk about FTPS and SFTP, as well as, we'll talk about the ones from before with Secure Shell in a minute. But so FTPS, first of all, we need to talk about FTP. FTP stands for File Transfer Protocol, and it uses two different ports. It uses ports 20 for data and ports 21 for the control of the communications and everything. So FTP uses those two things and allows you to take a file and move it up to a remote site, to a server. So we have what we call an FTP server. We have an FTP client. So I'm using a Mac now. A common FTP client for here would be something like FileZilla. You can get that on the PC as well, but I remember I was using something called WSFTP, I believe, WS underscore FTP, and that was our client. So we could connect. But again, FTP is not secure. So you're using channels 20 and 21, but your communications there are not secure. So you need to, we need to do something to make it secure. And there's a couple different things that we can do here. So we can use FTPS. And FTPS, it's also known as FTP over SSL, or it's called FTP Secure. And that's an extension to FTP that uses SSL or TLS to provide the communication security. So FTPS, it supports all the SSL, TLS cryptographic protocols, including the use of the client and server certificates if you want. Also has the AES and 3DES ciphers for encryption, and it also uses SHA-1 and MD5 hash functions for data integrity. So FTPS, it supports the X509 signed or trusted public key certificates that we talked about earlier as well. So the thing to remember here is that FTPS is going to be using TCP port 989 for the data channel and TCP port 990 for the control channel. So as I mentioned before, FTP, just standard clear text FTP, is using TCP 20 for data and 21 for control. The secure version of this is using, the FTPS is using 989 TCP for the data and then 990 for TCP for the control. So keep that in mind. Also, we're talking about SSH File Transfer Protocol, which we mentioned before when we were talking about SSH. It's also known as SSH-FTP or Secure FTP. That's an extension of SSH protocol that enables secure file transfer capabilities between networked hosts. So yeah, so like I mentioned before, you can do a lot of things like listing the contents of a remote directory, deleting a remote file, and resuming an interrupted file transfer. So SFTP is going to use TCP port 22 because, like we showed in the animation above, you're setting up that channel 22, and then everything's going to be you're going to be using protocol tunneling within that. So that's the nice thing about it. So it mentions here that both FTPS and SFTP are used to securely transfer them, but FTPS, you got to keep in mind, FTPS is using SSL or TLS to create an authenticated and secure communication between the two hosts. SFTP uses SSH. So it's kind of confusing there because you've got FTPS, those combinations of letters, but just remember that FTPS is using SSL, and then SFTP is using SSH, and that's going to be over port 22. They're not compatible with each other. If you have an SFTP client, you can't connect to an FTPS server, or vice versa. So just keep that in mind. They are two different things. They're working off of different, the underlying technologies are different. One is SSL, TLS. The other one is using SSH, and the port numbers are different. So keep that in mind. And yep, that's the end of this lesson. It's a confusing short lesson, but again, just know how SSL works, know the ports, know about protocol, understand that protocol tunneling is just when you encapsulate a protocol's packets and you stick it within the packets of another, with another protocol. That allows you to use SSH to do things like FTP or other things you may want to do. So also know that SSH is reliant on public key and private key. The private key is kept on the client, the public key is on the server, and that's how it enables this communication. And then again, know the difference between FTPS versus SFTPS, or SFTP, sorry. So, and also know your port numbers for all those. And it lists in the chart here the port numbers for FTP. It has them all in here, so do memorize this. This is something you're going to need to know. And that's it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'd be happy to help. Have a great day. Aloha.